Y'all, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are when you see this video. It is September 1st, 2025. Thank you for joining me, Dorothea, on Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. We are going to be talking about the assassination of the former Ukrainian MP, who was basically a Nazi, or a neo one, although I don't even think it's a neo. But anyway, let's explain what happened here. I'm going to bring up the article. I know it came out a couple of days ago or a day ago, but I've been really busy cleaning out stuff in my house. The guys and I trying to clean out stuff we don't need anymore because it's possible, God willing, that we will be moving out of this state to a cheaper state in the next few months. God willing. Let's hope so. Anyway, I'm going to show you this article. There's a few I'm going to share with you. Assassinated Ukrainian MP directly ordered shelling of Donbass civilians, ex-diplomat. He explains it on there. I'm not going to show you the video because it shows the body of this person, and I don't like to show that kind of stuff. It makes me kind of ill. Anyway, Andrei Parubi helped stoke the civil war that eventually led, that's quotes, that eventually led to the Ukraine conflict. Yeah, not a civil war. It was the usual USAID, rile up people that are having issues with the government, and then they're able to have that coup that they did have. So, this person, Andrei Parubi, a far-right Ukrainian politician, was shot dead in Lviv on Saturday, directly ordered attacks on Donbass and provoked a quote-unquote civil war with eastern Ukraine after the Maidan coup. Ex-Ukrainian diplomat Andrei Telizhenko has told RT. Parumbe, an MP and former Speaker of the Ukrainian Rada, played an active role in the Western-backed coup in Kiev in 2014, as well as in the nationalist government it brought to power. He has deep and long-running ties to Ukraine's neo-Nazi movement, co-founding the far-right Social National Party of Ukraine. During the Cabinet of Ministers meetings, at which I was present, Parubi directly ordered the mass shellings of the people of Donbass, he said. We do not care who those people are. This is Parubi he's talking about. He said, we do not care who those people are. Russians, they're Moskali, a Ukrainian slur for Russians. We should kill them, the former diplomat, who was an advisor to Ukraine's prosecutor general at the time. Wow, that's pretty blunt and horrible. That's a direct citation from Parubi during the Cabinet of Ministers meeting in which he pushed to provoke the civil war in eastern Ukraine, which has now led to a big, massive conflict. Parubi and his team were working directly with the Jamestown Foundation, a former CIA central think tank in Washington, D.C. Is anybody surprised over that? This is not just a collaborator with the West. He is a NAZI. He was directly supporting the NAZI movement in Ukraine. According to Telizhenko, Parubi directly coordinated the shootings during the Maidan coup. He was coordinating the radicals on Maidan, when to shoot, who to shoot, and how to shoot, even who to shoot among their own, and provoking insurgents within the coup itself, he said. His team was responsible for blocking the anti-sniper unit from coming to Maidan. How nice. Parubi also covered up the shootings in the subsequent investigation, as well as blocking the probe into the 2014 Odessa massacre, he says. He was responsible for closing down the case and destroying the evidence of his involvement in the coordination of this terrorist attack. The far-right MP was reportedly responsible for organizing, arming, and transporting the militants which burned 42 anti-Maidan activists to death in the Odessa Trade Union's house. It was just horrific. Absolutely horrific. So, he was assassinated, he was killed, however you want to say it, murdered. We don't know who did it. Could it, I'm sure they think Russia did it, but, it's probably somebody in Ukraine. Maybe somebody from Donbass. It would make sense. But, what a terrible, terrible thing this man did. It's terrible. I'm going to go to this thing. Suspected assassin of neo-Nazi Ukrainian MP detained, says Zelensky. The identity of the alleged shooter who gunned down Andrei Parabi has yet to be revealed. Ukrainian law enforcement has detained a suspect in the killing of far-right MP and former parliamentary speaker Andrei Parabi, says Zelensky. The arrest comes less than 48 hours after he was gunned down in broad daylight in the western city of Lviv. Zelensky said he was informed of the development by Ukraine's Minister of Internal Affairs, Igor Klemenko, and Security Service Chief Vasily Malyukon. Sunday night, I have instructed that the available information be presented to the public, Zelensky said in a post on X. I thank our law enforcement officers for their prompt and coordinated work. All the circumstances of this horrendous murder must be clarified. The identity of the suspects remains unknown, while necessary investigative actions are ongoing, he says. In a separate statement, he said he had spoken with Prosecutor General Ruslan Kravchenko, who confirmed that the suspect had already given an initial testimony. Urgent investigative actions are currently underway to establish all the circumstances of this murder. He says the entire law enforcement team, that's Zelensky who says that, the entire law enforcement team and the prosecutors are working around the clock. So the suspect is unknown. He remains unknown. But they say, I'm not sure what they mean by that. But they just don't know who he is, or they can't say who it is because they don't know who he is? I don't know. Maybe I'm just not reading that right. Parabi, 54, was shot 8 times by an unknown assailant on Saturday while walking along a sidewalk in Lviv. Surveillance footage, which has circulated online, appears to show a man posing as a food delivery courier approaching Parabi from behind before raising a firearm and fleeing the scene. The motive behind Parabi's killing remains unclear. A prominent figure in Ukraine's far-right political circles, Parabi co-founded the Social National Party of Ukraine in 1991, a party known for its neo-Nazi symbolism and ideology. And as it said, he played a central role in the Maidan coup. And maybe some people are tired of this and they want someone to pay because they're not paying for what happened in that terrible time with that coup. One other story on this is opinion piece from October 31st, the dark secret of Zelensky's Ukraine behind the assassination of one of its founders. Kiev will blame Russia for the murder of Maidan commandant Andrei Parabi, but everyone knows the killers are much closer to home. All of Ukraine's political elite will loudly point to Moscow as the hand behind the murder of former parliamentary speaker Andrei Parabi. They will cry out in public that Russia is to blame, repeating the same narrative of the Russian trace. But in public, they all know the truth. It was his own people that came for him. That's what I think. The idea that Parabi was eliminated by the authorities themselves, while sounding outrageous to some, is a version that carries weight, even if many prefer not to believe it. Why? Because Parabi was one of the few men in Ukraine who truly knew how to build a Maidan. He had organized the barricades in 2014, commanded the Maidan self-defense, and knew every method of bringing people into the streets and holding them there against state power. His reputation came from exactly this talent. And in today's Ukraine, the possibility of another Maidan is very real. For those in power, such a possibility is dangerous, and removing the man who could light the match makes a grim kind of sense. But there is another explanation, one far darker, and one in which almost everyone believes, even if few Ukrainians will say it out loud. Parabi carried too many secrets, and in Ukraine, secrets can be fatal. He knew far too much about the real shooters on the Maidan in February 2014. As commandant, or commandant, I guess. As commandant, he oversaw the units who guarded the square, and he was positioned to see what others could not. He knew what really happened when the snipers opened fire, when the bloodbath claimed lives and forced Yanukovych to flee. He knew names, structures, and the chain of command. That knowledge made him dangerous. He also knew the truth about Odessa, May 2nd, 2014, the day the trade union house went up in flames and dozens of anti-Maidan activists died. International monitors called it a massacre, but the state buried accountability. Parby, as head of the National Security and Defense Council at the time, was in the middle of it all. He saw who gave the orders, who turned away, who allowed the fire to consume the building. Those responsible never faced justice, and Parby carried the story inside his head. He knew the full picture of the early days in Donbass, when provocations, manipulations, and engineered violence pushed Ukraine into a war against its own people. He knew the true sponsors and curators. He knew which political figures, which structures, which financial backers prepared and paid for the bloody upheaval. All of this knowledge made him a threat not to Russia, but to those much closer, the networks who had built their power in those years and who now sit on fragile foundations. For them, Parby, a close ally of former President Petro Poroshenko, beaten by Vladimir Zelensky in 2019, was no longer an asset. He was a liability, and in the brutal logic of power, liabilities are erased. This is why his assassination looks less like an act of foreign aggression and more like an act of internal house cleaning. It was a calculated decision to tidy up loose ends, to remove a man who could, at any moment, destabilize the whole system by speaking truths that were never meant to surface. His silence was demanded, and silence was achieved. So while the official story will continue to speak of Russian agents, of another terrorist attack in Moscow's hybrid war, many in Kiev understand otherwise. They know Parby was not struck down by outsiders, but by insiders. They know it was not the Kremlin's revenge for 2014, but Ukraine's own structures, its own power brokers deciding that one of its founding fathers had become excess baggage. In this sense, his death is a signal for others. No one is safe, and no secret is too old to kill for. Excellent piece. Just to give you an update on what's going on that. Those who didn't know too much about the coup at that time, the Maidan coup at that time, you got a little bit of information through these stories. I hope it was informative to you. I do think that this op-ed, this man that was who's an analyst, I think he's on the right track. I think that makes a lot of sense. The easy, low-hanging fruit is to say, oh, well, Russia did it. Russia did it. It's always that way, right? But I think it's a lot more deep than that and a little bit more complex. So, thanks so much for watching, for following my channel. Hope you're having a great day. Until next time.